But only one question remains. Did Mark Webber retire from Formula
Oh my god, you're so close.
It's because it says Mac Webber. July the 8th, 2012. 1 o'clock ticks over at the Silverstone circuit in England, and today is race day. Under overcast skies after days of rain, 127,000 spectators take their spot around the 5.89 kilometre track, ready to watch race 9 of 20 this season. A race where strategy would be the key to success. 23 2.4-litre V8 powered Formula 1 cars line the new front straight, awaiting green lights to begin the first of 51 laps. Spaniard Fernando Alonso takes his 21st of 22 career poles to date. Behind is his close mate and Australian hero Mark Webber, looking to take his second win of the season. Alonso became the first repeat winner this year, only one race prior in his home event at the Valencia Street Circuit. The chasing pack is full of race-winning potential, with Michael Schumacher in third place in ultimately his final British Grand Prix entrance. Vettel, Massa and Raikkonen fill out the top 6. Hometown heroes and McLaren teammates Lewis Hamilton and Jenson Button line up 8th and 18th respectively. The 2012 season saw 7 different winners take the first 7 races, namely Jenson Button, Fernando Alonso, Nico Rosberg, Sebastian Vettel, Pastor Maldonado, Mark Webber, and Lewis Hamilton. This was and still is a Formula 1 record. Fernando arrived at Silverstone with a 20-point lead, an impressive feat with such parity across the front-running drivers. Webber enjoys a consistent start to the year with 6 top 4 finishes entering England. He sits second in the championship, trying to erode Alonso's lead. Mark Webber joined the sport in spectacular fashion in 2002 with the Minardi F1 team, debuting as his home Grand Prix in Melbourne. The Minardi F1 team hadn't scored points since 1999. Mark scored 2 points for his 5th place finish. Those 2 points turned out to be the only points Minardi scored in 2002. So yes, rookie Mark Webber drove well beyond the car's potential on debut. As a result, he was allowed on the podium and joined the top 3 drivers. An Aussie standing on their own podium is a sight not seen before. Mark didn't deserve to be there on merit, and thus triggered what has been regarded as the Australian curse. 23 years later, and we are still yet to be graced with an Aussie driver on the Australian podium, despite a total of 24 wins between Mark, Daniel, and Oscar. Ricciardo stood on the podium in 2014, but due to a fuel flow breach, he was later disqualified. In 2025, Oscar looked like a shoo-in, but miserable conditions saw Melbourne teach Oscar a dire lesson and left Australia in pain once again. Mark Webber would have to wait 7 more years until the 2009 German GP to claim his first win in what was truly a remarkable performance, coming back from a drive-through penalty. At the time, a record wait for his first Formula 1 victory. Mark had a tumultuous start to his career racing for an uncompetitive Minardi, then moving to Jaguar from 03 to 04. A slight move in the right direction, but still not a team worthy of his talents. In 2005, Jaguar announced they were selling to Red Bull. Mark Webber, against the desire of his manager Flavio Briatore, moved to Williams for 05 and 06. Williams were on a downward spiral in 05, but Webber managed 10th overall. Things would hit a new low for the Queen Being native in 2006 as Williams took on the Cosworth engine. Webber would retire from the Australian GP and Monaco GP, both from 3rd place, scoring 7 points in total, a significant drop from the 36 the year before. 2007 would see his career really take off as he signed with Red Bull, returning to the team he left 2 years prior, now cashed up and run by a young yet eager to impress Christian Horner. Christian wasn't alone. He had Adrian Newey beside him, designing the RB3. Webber was looking at a career-high 2nd place finish in Fuji until a disastrous Sebastian Vettel took him out in the sister team, Toro Rosso. 2009 saw a significant upward swing in performance, and by 2010, Red Bull were ready to fight for the Formula 1 World Championship. 2010 would see Mark take 4 wins and 10 podiums, entering the finale in 2nd overall, only 8 points behind Fernando, with his new teammate Sebastian Vettel a further 7 points back. That race would unfold unfavourably for Webber and Alonso. 2011 saw pure domination from Seb as the Aussie icon only racked up one win and quickly moved focus to 2012. His 11th campaign. Could Mark add to his win tally of 7? 23 perfectly crafted race cars sit revving at 18,000 RPMs on what is now known as the Hamilton Straight. 5 lights go out and quickly the race is on as Alonso and Webber crisscross down the straight, barely avoiding each other as the field carefully negotiates Abbey. All 23 cars safely arrive at the loop where the first bit of action unfolds, with Paul di Resta understeering into Grosjean and the latter's front wing piercing a hole in di Resta's rear right tyre, quickly sending him spinning off the track at Antry. Kimi and Vettel make slight contact through the loop and some carbon fibre deposits on the track as a result. Both continue. Bruno Senna is the lap 1 hero, making up 5 spots. Button also improves 4 spots to take 12th, entering lap 2. A sequence of moves sure to impress the home crowd. Sebastian Vettel sets the pace early with the fastest lap on lap 3, setting a 1 minute 40.8 time. Every driver is in contention for this win as Silverstone offers many passing opportunities to those who qualified out of position, needing to make spots back up early and use their pace. Mark Webber remains only 6/10ths behind Alonso, entering lap 3, crucially within 1 second of DRS. Despite having DRS, Mark can make no inroads on the Spanish wizard as he balances speed and tyre management. Further down the field, Michael Schumacher is creating a bottleneck behind. Massa attempts to pass the Mercedes into Copse, but a late movement from the German forces Massa to pull out. Massa immediately loses momentum and thus P4 to Vettel, entering Maggots. Paul di Resta officially retires from the Grand Prix due to damage sustained from his first lap clash. 22 cars remain. Sebastian Vettel becomes the first car to pit on lap 11 with a modest 3.5 second stop, putting the hard tyres on his RB8, emerging in 15th right behind the other Australian, Daniel Ricciardo. Fernando Alonso responds to the threat of a Vettel undercut by setting a new fastest lap of the race with a 1 minute 38.5, 2.3 seconds faster than Vettel's early fastest lap. Lap 12 sees Sergio Perez attempt to pass Pastor Maldonado on the outside of Brooklands, a move less than desirable as Pastor opens his steering into the Mexican. He breaks his rear suspension and quickly becomes another victim of racing Maldonado, and the third driver to retire from this race. Mark Webber comes in on lap 15, Fernando 1 lap later. Mark puts on the softs after starting on the hards. Alonso, however, equips a second set of hard tyres, a tyre acknowledged as the best under race conditions. The opposite strategies ensure we'll have a battle to the end. On lap 19, Fernando catches and passes Lewis Hamilton, who is yet to pit. Lewis, however, tucks in behind Fernando down the Wellington Straight. The Ferrari with the DRS advantage isn't enough as Lewis momentarily retakes the lead. His tyres don't have the same fight the wily Brit does, as he submisses to his rival. Lewis finally pits on lap 21 to replace his worn rubber with a lightning 2.8 second stop. 1 lap later, McLaren again show the rest of the field how to replace the Pirelli P0s in record time, also servicing Jensen's car in 2.8 seconds. Like clockwork during a low-action Grand Prix, reports of rain incoming hit on lap 25, with intel from Milton Keynes, a mere 24 kilometres away. The McLaren duo find one another on track and start fighting and holding themselves up, with the team not interfering despite the speed differential. Eventually, Lewis forces the move on Jensen into Copse, the overtake costing Jensen a further position to an advantageous Roman Grosjean. Up the front, Fernando's lead ballooned to 5.5 seconds over Webber. Mark pits on lap 33 and emerges out behind Kimi, who is yet to stop. Car 2 wastes no time, setting a new fastest lap of 1 minute and 33 seconds .1 and closes the gap to 19.5 seconds to Fernando. Lap 38 sees Ferrari pull their man in and apply a set of the undesired softs. He emerges ahead of Webber by 4 seconds, but Mark has the right tyre at the right time. Within 6 laps, the lead has condensed to just 1.5 seconds, with the Red Bull able to pull half a second out of the car ahead per sector at times. Vettel has gotten into third, with Felipe and Kimi rounding out the 5. Button is pushing hard to pass Bruno Senna in the final laps, but the young Brazilian isn't letting go of the final championship point easily. Lap 46 and Marc is within DRS range of the Ferrari for the first time since the early laps. His first opportunity is short-lived as the lapped car also gives Fernando DRS. Through maggots and beckets, the command Mark Webber has over the RB8's front axle is visible as he gets ever closer to the rear of the prancing horse, even in his turbulent air. A coiled up Mark Webber complains about a rough upshift, but his team calmly reports back he was on the hard cut and the car is fine. They even mention the weather is clear to ease the tension inside the cockpit, calming Mark in his pursuit for that 9th win. A lap later and clear track ahead, the minuscule DRS flap opens, yet provides minimal benefit for the RB8, which looks like it drops anchors in comparison to the Ferrari down the Wellington Straight. With 5 laps remaining, the advantage Mark enjoys is through the corners, his hard tyres providing him the mechanical grip and confidence to do as he pleases. He is going for win 9 of his career, win 2 of the season, and win 2 at Silverstone. Alonso is aiming for back-to-back Silverstone wins and back-to-back round wins to further open up his championship lead. With Vettel 5 seconds behind Mark, it is now mate versus mate, Alonso versus Webber, but more importantly, Ferrari versus Red Bull. Lap 48 and Alonso gives Webber the break he's been looking for. A small bubble pushing him off the apex at the loop, allowing Mark to get the run entering Antry. Down the Wellington Straight, both drivers deploy their curves in offense and defense. Mark, with DRS, pulls along the outside of car 5 and sends it around the outside at Brooklands to take the lead of the Silverstone Grand Prix. Webber never looks back as he takes his checkered flag and closes the championship lead down to just 13 points. He takes the 9th and final win of his career. Mark would go on to finish the 2012 championship in 6th after a disastrous ending to his campaign, including 2 DNFs in the last 4 races. The relationship between Mark and Sebastian at Red Bull had been tricky to navigate, and as an Australian, hard to watch. Their relationship would hit breaking point at the 2013 Malaysian Grand Prix and the infamous Multi-21 saga. Not long after Vettel stole sure victory out of Webber's hands, despite the wishes of his team, Mark would announce his retirement from the sport, citing his decision on a desire for new challenges and a shift in his priorities. 2013 saw 8 podiums and no wins for Mark Webber. He gave a memorable celebration of his career in Brazil as he removed his helmet on the in-lap and completed it with his hair in the wind, waving to the crowd. Mark Webber competed in 215 races and achieved 9 race wins, 42 podium finishes, and 13 pole positions. He competed in 12 seasons of Formula 1 and finished as the 3rd most successful Australian F1 driver behind only Sir Jack Brabham and Alan Jones, with 4 world championships between them. But only one question remains. Did Mark Webber retire from Formula 1 prematurely?
Round 1. Player 1. Ready. Player 2. Ready. Fight.
All right, Timmy, good job on the 2012 British Grand Prix.
It was a hard watch,
A hard watch?
for the most part.
It was a good watch, I think.
Yeah.
I was a bit worried that there wasn't going to be anything that really happened in the race.
Minimal talking points was the fear, but it ended good.
So the big question, did Mark Webber retire from Formula 1 prematurely? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
See, we haven't spoken about this before now, so
No.
I actually didn't know what your stance would be.
I think he did. I think 12 years, that's a short career.
It is definitely in comparison to what we're seeing, like the numbers that we're seeing these days.
For someone who was pretty successful and like very talented, I think 12 years is a short career.
So why else do you think it was premature then? Like, do you think that
Well,
he was still in his window of performance?
I think he still
like
could
peak
have.
performance?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think he got bullied a bit by Vettel, but I
Maybe.
think it's
Vettel or Helmut Marko?
yes,
Our favourites.
yeah, yeah, the villain back then
Yeah.
as well.
A box banner favourite.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's funny watching like that season live and the 2013 season, it felt like, oh yeah, he's, you know, not surprising when he hung the helmet up.
Yeah.
You know, but then looking back and then especially thinking, wow, only 12 seasons, you know, and then looking back at how he was good, you know, and those 9 wins come in like a 3-year window as well, from his slow start to his career to then his successful period in Red Bull, and he had one of the best as his teammate, taking the majority of the wins. Those 9 wins came in 4 years.
Yeah, I guess because he at the time he had the record for the most amount of Grand Prix raced
without a win. Yeah.
So
he took that record, or
yeah, I guess once you kind of square those off, and then you think about his race winning window, it was actually quite decent, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you think like nowadays you got Verstappen, he'd be 10 years, and you wouldn't think in 2 years he's hanging it up. You know, I know he's super successful, but like it creeps up on you so quick. You go, already 10 years, you know, and
he still seems so young, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But and he is, but he's already raced so much. Well, he's raced the career length of Formula One for so many drivers already, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So, all right, if you're saying that he did end his career prematurely, I remember reading that he had an offer to go to Ferrari,
right,
and he stayed true to his word and loyal to Red Bull, and said that he was going to see out his career with Red Bull, and he honoured that. So, in your opinion, then, if he was going to continue his career on for 1, 2, 3, 4 more seasons, should he have stayed with Red Bull, or should he have pivoted to Ferrari and seen what he could do there? And obviously we have the hindsight of knowing what Ferrari has been over the last 13 years.
Yeah.
But think of it at the time, not knowing what Ferrari was going to be.
I don't think that he owed Red Bull anything.
No.
I know they gave him a good car, and, you know, they did poach him from another team. They weren't, you know, they brought him in.
They didn't
elsewhere.
pull him from
Exactly.
the Red Bull
It wasn't from
junior ranks, did they?
So like that was maybe the favour. But his talent was worthy of that, you know, of giving him that opportunity. But they proved time and time again that they didn't have his back. There's been numerous cases of clear favouritism towards Seb.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, Red Bull have always worked in that way, haven't they? They've always given clear priority to one driver over another.
Yeah.
And maybe he was a bit unfortunate that Seb was gifted that opportunity so early.
Yeah.
And he wasn't allowed more time to, you know, see what he could do.
Yeah, well, it's funny listening to that retelling there. Like Seb went in 2010 from 15 points behind. Like that's a fair effort. You know, like he was, you know, he had to be an outside contender for the win. It really would have been down to Alonso and Webber, and it just whatever went wrong to cause that is just, it's a shame.
So is that you saying that you would like to have seen him take a seat at Ferrari and just seen what he could have done?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, we know, you know, the reasons he cited for retirement. We know it all stemmed from Multi-21. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. That was the last straw. Like everything he went through with Seb, you know, they crashed in Turkey, you know, the Multi-21 thing, the not bad for number 2 driver, like all that. There was so much that happened as teammates. Multi-21 was just the last thing. I mean, that was win number 10 for Mark.
Multi-21, and it was taken away from him, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So if he does go to Ferrari, do you think, like, who were the driver pairings the season after? So when he retired, who was in Ferrari?
It would have been, I dare say, 2014, it was Raikkonen and Alonso.
Oh, okay, so
he would have replaced Massa. He would have been the Raikkonen.
The Raikkonen, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, do you think that he could have found success then?
I think so. I mean, at least success in terms of winning. Like, we know Raikkonen spent 4 years there, maybe, at that point in time, and he got wins. Again, he was like, Vettel came in. So, I mean, could you imagine that? Vettel comes in and chases Webber to Ferrari.
Again. Yeah,
that could have happened.
Be the old Ricardo Sainz debacle.
Yeah, exactly.
Everywhere you go, I come to.
Well, that would have been hilarious, to be honest, if it ended up being Webber and Vettel in Ferrari.
Both jumped ship from Red Bull.
Yeah. But I think he would have gone there, and the car was clearly good enough to win races. You know, so I think he would have got a couple of wins. Who knows? But regardless, 12 seasons for a really good driver who, like, he bowed out on his own accord. You know, which is nice. Like Ricciardo, he must have raced about 12 seasons, and he didn't get that privilege.
When did he announce his retirement? Do you remember?
Webber?
Yeah. Like at what point in the season? Was it post-season?
No, it wasn't. No, it was definitely throughout the season.
Because he had the send-off in Brazil.
He took someone off.
Yeah.
Awesome. There's definitely, my memory serves that it was not long after Multi-21.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right, so where does Webber sit for you in terms of F1 drivers? Not just as an Australian, but let's just say in the past, since he came into the sport, so let's just say roughly the last 25 years.
Right.
Where is he? Is he a top 10 driver for you? Is he a top 15?
Well, that's tough. I mean, if you're talking about drivers I enjoy watching, he's clearly top 5. As far as who am I turning on the TV for? Yeah, I'm a fan of Alonso and obviously every Australian driver. But as far as non-Australians, there's been people I enjoy watching. Like, I like Leclerc, like Alonso, like over that period of time. Raikkonen, like big fan of his. But I'd say just in terms of who do I turn the TV on for, Webber's the top 5.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're ranking him on, how good is he?
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough to do that. I'd say comfortably top 20.
Yeah.
In that 25 years.
For you, yeah.
But as far as giving him a position, it's tough. I'd say number 1 in tenacity, in toughness.
Yeah.
He fought for every win he got.
I think not even just every win. I think he fought for every ounce of Formula 1 he got.
Exactly. Yeah.
He had a lot of just bad luck, but he always seemed to overcome it and, go harder, if anything.
Yeah.
I mean, how many years was it without a win? But he stayed in it. Yeah. He stayed hungry. He took any opportunity he could get, until he finally got that notch. And then once he got that one, as you said, he was able to then string together quite a few wins and end up getting 9 in the end.
It took him 3 years in the Red Bull before he got a win. So it wasn't even like shoe in, here's a good car, go. Yeah. Like, he was a part of the development, he was a part of the team growth to that point.
So some of the things that he had to overcome that I looked a little bit into was, like, he got 2 injuries on his bicycle.
Yeah, he got hit. He got hit by a car or something.
One was hit by a car, like
a
head on. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was pretty rough. What's the second one?
Second one, I think he didn't have some sort of rod, or was that from that accident? Rod into his leg.
No,
he had a few surgeries on his.
Yeah,
his
I think it might have been a different one because I think it was, wrists or hands related when he hit by the car, something like that. Yeah. And it was all pre-season, like rebuilding him. I think the other one might have been
there was at
something
least
later in the year.
2 or 3 seasons there where he missed a bit of pre-season testing due to injuries and stuff. So having to overcome those, obviously, he had a very young Sebastian Vettel take him out before he was in the Red Bull.
Yeah, as mentioned in the retelling at what was it? Fuji. Yeah, under safety car, mind you.
And then his year where he was basically in the best position to become world champion. Was that 2012?
10.
Or
2010,
that came earlier. So then, as far as that year goes, where do you think he lost it? Like, where do you think was it him? Do you think it was his own fault that he lost the chance, or do you think it was more outside forces?
Yeah, I think he had a moment in Valencia where he had the flip, where he ran up the back of another car and he flipped, and obviously that's 0 points. That's not ideal.
How anyone survives that without, and like, let me remind you, no halos.
Yeah, no, exactly.
He just gets out and walks out like it was nothing.
Yeah. And that was not only a flip and land on his lid, but then it was fast into the barriers. That was a big whack.
Unbelievable.
So 0 points there doesn't help. But the final race, like I said, he was 6 or 8 points behind Fernando, and I think it was a bit of Alonso and Webber or their teams just focusing on them two. And
forgetting about Vettel.
Yeah, exactly right. And reacting to undercuts, and then the track proves tricky to pass. And I think Webber finished like 6 or 8, like finished nowhere in that race, and so did Alonso.
Yeah.
Which is how Vettel sails through and achieves 15 or 16 more points than them.
So if he wins that, right? Let's say he puts that race together and he wins it and he does become that world champion.
Yeah.
Do you think that then does prolong his career? You know, especially with Red Bull, like
Potentially. I mean, yeah. I mean,
or do you think that Vettel was always inevitable? Vettel was
Vettel probably inevitable. I mean, that next year he turned it up. Like he was, I
kind
think,
of proved it wasn't a fluke, right?
yeah. Well, I think Max last year was close to breaking the record of consecutive wins, 8 or 9. But then he had that Singapore race where it all sort of fell apart for him. So he didn't get it.
Yeah.
But he matched it. I think that was a Vettel record from 11.
Right.
Such as the dominance Vettel had.
Yeah.
So I'd say he was inevitable, but if Webber gets one over Vettel, and Webber's a 1-time and Vettel's now a 3-time, that's a very different prospect.
Is he one of those drivers that is like you? There's lots of drivers who have various levels of Formula One success, and I mean, look, at the end of the day, they're always going to say that their goal is to be F1 champion.
Yeah, of course.
But I have no doubt there's some drivers that are just happy to be in the sport and they want to be just in the sport for as long as possible. We've seen drivers who, like some that come to mind for me, like Gasly, who have managed to get that race win. And for them, that might be even just, I'm just happy that I was able to get that in my career.
Yeah.
Do you think that Mark Webber is regrettable that he didn't become world champion? I know it almost seems like a silly question, but do you think he looks back and think, I wish I just did things a little bit differently?
Yes.
Or do you think he's very content with how the chips fell and like he's still very much involved in the sport now, and maybe a lot of maybe he's looking at it now as my purpose is now to help another young Australian driver come through and help him in his bid
I think
to achieve the ultimate goal?
The biggest thing. Like, he had a rough career. He was in his biggest moments, he was the number 2, and he copped it because of it. Certain things, he will have learnt from that, and that's the best thing Oscar's got.
Yeah,
he's got that person in his ear saying, "Don't sign that contract. Don't agree to these terms pre-race. Don't settle for that number 2 driver because you're happy to be in a race-winning car. You're going to lose out, and then at the end of the day, lose out on the potential to win a championship. And that's what happened with Mark. I mean, this race here in 2012, he leaves Silverstone with, what is it, a 13-point deficit or something. So, like, that's race 9, that's mid-year. He's right there. And then it just falls apart for him, you know? So, yeah, I'd say he'd have to regret it. He'd have to look back and know, man, 2010, like, chips fall a little bit differently. I'm a champion there.
Yeah.
2012, mid-year, I'm there, Again, if things just go a little differently, decisions and... like I said, he had 2 DNFs in the last 4 races, but he had another DNF sort of 3 or 4 rounds before that. So the year really fell apart for him. But again, just small things happen, and you're looking at a 1 or 2-time world champion, which puts you in elite ranks.
So on the list of drivers who never made it as Formula One world champion, where does he sit for you? Is he the number 1 driver that you wished you saw win a championship?
Oh, as far as drivers I wished would win it, had a potential, him and Ricciardo are, I'd probably put him above Ricciardo because he was a real chance, Things really went against him to not win one.
He led the championship there for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that was the first Australian to do so in a long time.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen that again until now.
Yeah. So I'd say for everything he went through, for his, he got where he got to in England without backing. It's the Aussie grit. It's the mentality he had.
Yeah.
The tenacity, the toughness, to get into that position. And like we said, his getting to Red Bull was tough. And then he gets there and then gets the win and does all that, and it's tough. And then he gets to a point where he put himself in contention for a championship win, and it didn't happen. So Ricciardo, he had the support of the Red Bull Junior program, and again,
well,
still
he was in a
great,
very different position, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Because he had Red Bull's development and support.
Yeah.
Where Mark Webber was someone who was brought in outside of that.
Yeah.
So there almost is a sense that he was always going to be disadvantaged against someone who came through that program, such as a Vettel, and Ricciardo didn't have those same maybe issues.
No,
at least until he met someone named Max Verstappen, and then
Ricciardo was the star of Red Bull as soon as he went in that first year,
Well,
he was dominating Vettel effectively to the point where Vettel left the team, and it was Ricciardo's team for quite some time. Webber never had that. Maybe in 07, like
it was a very brief
David
window,
Coulthard
wasn't
to
it?
this day is still a Red Bull man.
Yeah.
Mark's not a Red Bull man.
No.
He's a
no.
Formula One man. He's an Oscar man. He's not a Red Bull man. David Coulthard is still a Red Bull man.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
true. Yeah.
So it probably was Coulthard's team, even though Webber was better than him and outperformed him. It was probably still Coulthard's team. Then Vettel comes in. You know, maybe there's a bit of, but they could see the potential of Vettel. They bred him from a young age through the junior team to bring him in. So it was never really Webber's team.
No.
You know.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. So do you think how much of Oscar's success, like right now, would you attribute to Mark Webber? Do you think?
Do I want to say all of it?
Do you?
I mean, you got to wonder the whole Alpine didn't sign with them.
Yeah.
How much was that like his manager?
Mhm.
You know, how was
To be
he
a
20,
fly on the
21
wall.
years old when that happened?
Yeah.
Like you're not 21 years old doing that, making those decisions for yourself. You're
That's
probably a little bit more happier to just be like, cool, I'm in Formula One and Alpine.
Yeah.
But then instead
I'm in
you
a
get
team, a
Yeah.
top team. I'm getting paid good money.
Yeah.
I've made it.
instead you got
into
Mark
the
Webber
sport.
in your corner, who's no, we can negotiate something better here.
Mm.
To the point where he ends up in the McLaren. Yep, his debut season was tough just because the car wasn't there. But then look where he is now.
In
He's
such a quick
clearly
turnaround too. Yeah.
a high performer
Mm.
in the biggest moments. But him being in this position is the luck Mark never had.
Yeah.
You know, so I'd say a lot of it. You know, the driver skill is one thing, but to be in this position is a lot to do with Mark Webber.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you think that he has more of an effect on Oscar's career right now than maybe even some people realize. Just not even just in the mindset in the cockpit, but also outside. Like, I would love to know what it would be like to be in a room with someone like Mark Webber and Zach Brown.
Yeah.
And how they sort of handle, you know, the team dynamics that are going on at McLaren there.
Especially the occasional, you know, last year, especially the team orders.
Mm-hmm.
Like the big old side eye, Mark Webber would be given Zach Brown and Andrea about every time he hears it. Like, you know, this stuff was all discussed, premeditated. Like I said last year, or, you know, in our discussions last year, Oscar's paid his dues. He did the team game thing last year, knowing, all right, yep, it's too late for me this year, but just wait. Like, come now, 2025.
I can call in those.
He's paid his dues.
Yeah.
He's played the team game. If in, you know, and again, there's not even a third, you know, driver this year in contention. So it is between the two. So it shouldn't come into factor. But yeah, he played the team game early when it didn't disadvantage him. And yeah, I'd say Mark was very cautious. Like, he will play the number 2 driver here, but just know he's not the number 2 driver here.
Yeah, cash in on those favors.
Yeah, and set it early. This is not going to continue to next year. Like, this is not a 1 and 2 driver situation. Oscar here is equal 1 at worst.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know if you remember when Webber was, you know, gearing up for retirement, and there was a lot of questions around that his seat, who was going to take that seat.
Oh, I remember.
Do you remember the excitement at the prospect of another Aussie basically replacing him?
It was a big deal.
It was, wasn't it?
I remember being a really big deal. Who's going to do it? And then when the announcement was huge, like the actual announcement of saying, yep, Fernando Ricciardo, they made an event of it, you know? It was a huge thing for everyone. It was great. And it's funny in relation to when Seb left and they brought in Vern, I think.
Yep.
And it's just an announcement, like a social media announcement, you know what I mean? Like, Vettel leaving and bringing in this guy didn't have that same, you know, nature to it. Yeah,
Yep.
it was completely different. But
yeah, I remember being very tense, watching it very tensely and just thinking, you know, it sucks we're losing an Aussie from the sport.
Yeah.
We've got another very young Aussie who's pretty much unproven. Like, Daniel Ricciardo hadn't done anything.
No, not that.
You know, he hadn't snatched any cheeky wins or podiums or anything like that. No. So it almost seemed unlikely. But then when it was officially announced, there was almost a sense of, I guess, like relief of like, okay, there's still a big motivation for us to watch the sport, because now, hey, there's this other Aussie and he's in a top tier team. Unfortunately for him, it was just in a changing era.
Yeah.
When the Red Bull was on more of a downwards trend.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember that being very a very intense period of time as well.
It shows how lucky we are. Like, since I've watched the sport and you've watched the sport, well, since 2002, we've had an Aussie the whole time.
And what do you think that is down to? Like, why is such a competitive and, you know, money dominated sport? Why is there always seems to be Aussie names in the mix?
Yeah, at this point in time, I don't know. I think it's just got to be that the world is more open to Formula One nowadays than it was back then. Like, it's still completely money based, but they're looking further. The pond's bigger, you know, and we just clearly, you know, breed them right. I mean, we very nearly could have had 3 Aussies on the grid at the start of this year. Like, could you imagine that?
Yeah,
that's huge. That's like 15% of the grid.
Yeah.
You know, like that's massive. If that was to happen, didn't, and we only got 1 now. Funnily enough.
Yeah.
But you know, he's great as well. And he's going to be here for a while, so you know we have nothing to worry about as far as not having an Aussie to root for.
All right, so going back to 2012, like I said, when you mentioned this was the race that we're going to cover. I was sort of racking my brain over like, you know, what's the hoopla around this race?
Yeah.
Like, Mark Webber gets his 9th win. It turns out to be his final win.
Yep.
What do you like about this era the most?
Oh, it's tough. Could just be, you know, it was the first real season I sat down and I spent the hard yards, the hard hours sinking in front of it, you know.
Yeah.
And we've talked about the fact that it was on Channel 10. We got to turn on at, you know, the races at 10 normally at that time. Turn the TV on at 9:30 and we got to watch the Channel 10 Australian pre-race coverage of Matt White, Alan Jones and Darryl Beattie sitting there and just debrief, you know, pre-briefing the race a little bit and then get into the race, then you go back to them after, you know, like I remember that so well. But you look back on it and you go, that was real racing. Like the cars were so much smaller, like they were like little nimble go-karts. Like they were able to throw them around and really race, you know.
They're like bees or wasps or something. They just
and then,
look,
you know, naturally the noise is compelling.
Yeah.
Like they sound great.
Well, watching Silverstone, you know, from a race 13 years ago to, you know, we're about to come up to it shortly again. One thing that really stuck out for me was because of the size of the cars, they were using so much more of the track than we typically see these days to make passes and make maneuvers. Yeah. You know, they were running in different parts to try and find ways around cars, and they were doing it. You know, there was lots of overtaking and lots of passing. Yeah. So there was quite a few narratives you could follow. There was obviously the fight at the front, but there was lots of great midfield battles going on too.
And the other thing was the DRS was half the size, I want to say, of what it is now.
It still provides an advantage, but it's not a ridiculous advantage. You still had to maneuver
construct
the car.
the pass and set yourself up to take that advantage. It wasn't just we see now drivers, they don't do that. They go, it's all right as long as I'm in 7/10 of the car ahead at the DRS range. Exactly. So you don't have to really construct that run and then use that extra advantage. Like you just get the advantage because the DRS is so huge now. You know?
So do you think, like, obviously we've found ourselves where we are here in Formula One because of evolution of the cars and evolution of engines and aerodynamics.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a point where when you're creating such fine margins and you're kind of engineering things to such a level that it's actually detracting from the racing, that we should maybe pull it back a bit?
Yeah.
Like watching a race like that, even though there was no real major incidents, no real major crashes or anything, it was very easy to be invested in on.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, it wasn't just lead at the front. There was multiple battle packs, and we saw good racing for 10th place. You know, like they weren't going to give up that point, and they're in a position to fight. I think yes, and I think that the whole when they reset regs, it's to try and bring the cars back to a raceable manner.
Yeah.
And we see this year, and we saw 2013, like, once the regs are matured fully, the cars are so even, you'd think it would provide good racing. But because there's so much aerodynamic influence, cars get close, but then they're so equal, they don't have big advantages, and then they get stuck in the wake of the car ahead.
Well, and you add the size of them too.
Yeah.
So then it just becomes an impossible task.
Exactly. So you reset the regs, all of a sudden everyone's all over the place, and you might get different advantages at different tracks, and really opens it up again. And next year, like, the cars are going back to that similar, not even 2012, like I think they're going back to more like a 06 range size.
Yeah,
like,
so back even further.
just necessity, just enough space for what you need. Like, the cars now are huge.
Yeah.
You know, you said it, like watching Silverstone. I don't reckon this year, we'll see any passes into maggots, because you're brave, because you're going, it's the S's on the back. So
Yeah.
you're trying to pass into there, you're putting just all your hope that the car just gives up the other car.
Well, it's basically one line you can take, right?
Yeah.
Where, you know, we could see Webber and Alonso fighting through there, and they were taking very different lines.
exactly.
You know, like Alonso was having to take a more defensive line, and he was able to.
Yeah.
And Webber could take a very offensive line and make that pace up onto him, whereas now you're just kind of stuck in a train, right?
And you never see, now the cars are too big, you'd never see the 2 into 1, whereas back then, that was almost a top 2 or 3 passing opportunity on that track.
Yeah.
It was just come out of that fast cops and then be side by side entering the S's, and like, it's a genuine passing opportunity.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to getting back to that.
Well, he's hoping.
Well, just with the small cars, we should.
Like, especially this season, very conflicting as fans, because, you know, part of me hopes for a boring race just so we can
it's nice
see
and safe for Oscar.
exactly, and we have the best opportunity for the next Australian World Champion, one that we haven't seen in our lifetime, and you know, one that Australia hasn't seen for a long time. But you know, that's at the expense of good racing, and we've had not really a lot of good racing this year. I mean, last year it was all about Lando versus Verstappen, and they had some hard racing, and it often ended in, you know, calamitous results.
Yeah.
Even this year, we haven't even really seen that. Like, they've been going hard, but it's been pretty clean. It's been pretty non-eventful.
Yeah.
So it's conflicting. So I think there is a big desire next year to see these regulations change.
Yeah.
See the playing field leveled a bit more, even if it does maybe disadvantage Oscar. But I think that's really going to show, okay, who's really worth their weight? Who really is a racer here? You know, who can really extract the most from their car?
Yeah.
So a good talking point as well is watching the Silverstone 2012 is just how many race winners from the season were on the grid, and how many world champions were on the grid.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You
Yeah.
know? So
Well, we have Schumacher, Hamilton, Alonso, Vettel, Rosberg in the future.
Yeah.
That's 5 at least. Raikkonen was already a champion at that point.
Raikkonen.
So you got at least 5 current and 1 future.
Yeah.
At least, yeah.
At least.
That's
And I'm sure that we're probably still missing
missing
some
some.
names. Yeah.
I mean, you know, we're talking through the week, and you contrast that to now, where as of 2025, Oscar is the 4th most winningest F1 driver that is active in the grid.
Yeah.
7 wins. Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy to
7
comprehend.
wins, and it's only his 3rd season, really. So
And Alonso shouldn't really even be there, you know. So then you got Verstappen, who's very much current, and Hamilton, who's borderline, but Alonso, you know, hasn't won in 12 years or something, you know, something crazy. So you got Oscar as the 4th most winningest driver with 7, and then right there you talk about 6 world championship capable drivers on the grid at one time. The amount of wins between them,
that's a third almost.
yeah,
of
and
the grid.
all of them would have had at least double-digit wins or close to it at that time.
Yeah.
You know, it's
It really does show an element of, like, it could be anyone's race.
Yeah.
You know, anyone has a DNF or a clash, they don't finish. There's so many good, talented drivers on the grid that anyone could take it. You look at the grid right now, we've got a lot of rookies. A lot of rookies.
It's a lot.
You know, and if, you know, assuming that those guys stay on the grid for X amount of years, you know, it'd be interesting to see where they are in 3 years. Is any of them going to be race winners? Is any of them going to be potential world champions? Are they going to be fighting for world champions?
Yeah.
You know, right now you look at Oscar, you look at Lando, you look at Max. Charles is another one who you would say is should be a championship contender.
Yeah.
You know, not looking like it this year, but again, next year is a very different set of circumstances. So there's a lot of unknown heading into next year.
Yeah.
But it would be great to see the sport get to that level of, you know, that many world champions all
It would be awesome.
fighting for the title again.
It's like a league of legends. That's what it seemed like looking at that year, you know. And we talked about briefly when watching the race, like Ferrari at that time and for its whole history up until sort of lately, I feel, used to be a team you could just trust. They were the team of Formula One. They were the granddad of Formula One. They always had a dominant driver, you know, a trustworthy driver. The car, you look at the car and you just think Formula One.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays you look at Ferrari, you don't think of the history. You don't think of them as that's Formula One. That's the granddad of Formula One.
No,
and I know Hamilton's in there this year, but I think part of that is you look back at the last 4 years and you had Sainz and Leclerc, like two young drivers, haven't really achieved anything. They're not. You didn't look at Ferrari and think this is the team we trust as Formula One when they have Leclerc and Sainz in the car.
No, I mean, if you look at Ferrari then and you think of Raikkonen and Alonso, right? You think, geez, we got a great shot at a title here.
Yeah.
Like we got
two world champions.
Yeah.
You know,
and they don't have that. They haven't had that for a long time. Alonso's probably not Alonso. Hamilton's the first guy that they've probably gotten in a while, where it's like, okay, Ferrari look like they mean business, right? They want to win. They're looking to one of those alpha dogs again to try and pull their legacy back up to where it should be.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it hasn't gone that way.
It's sort of half-assed, isn't it? It's kind of like Charles is still our guy, but we want you as our backup plan or something. Yeah. You said it before. It's almost like it's not quite the right fit. It's almost like they haven't embraced him entirely, or maybe.
I mean, they tried. Like the preseason stuff was mega.
Yeah.
But then, just hasn't worked.
How quickly it fell away.
I'd say the thing, right? This is it. Would you put Ferrari on the poster?
Well, no, you wouldn't, right?
If you were to print F1 25, not the game, F1 25 poster.
Yeah.
Then you put the team that people want to see, the team that just breathes success.
Well, right now it's McLaren, isn't it?
That's what you put on the poster. Yeah. That's the team you trust in. That's the team you look at and go, that's Formula One.
I mean, every sponsor wants to be on that car.
Yeah.
Everybody's buying McLaren merch.
Yeah. So I think that's the biggest takeaway is that's the team right now. And Ferrari, I just feel like would be a shoe-in for that their whole history.
Yeah.
Up until, say, a number, 2018, 2017, starts to fade. And they start to look amateur and make stupid decisions. And
well, it's funny watching Alonso back then, knowing that he pretty much has no success from even that point till now, and he's still in the sport today. And it looks like he's still going to be there next year.
Yeah.
And like that seems like, in some ways, it doesn't seem like that long ago, but it's a career length of time ago. Right?
Well, I mean, he's over 400 Grand Prix. We talked about Webber. Hung the helmet up at 215.
Yeah.
So he's doubled Webber's career length effectively.
Yeah, with like no success.
Yeah, exactly. He's really had, it's the Kobe number 8 and Kobe number 24 thing where you've got two careers effectively.
Yeah.
It's Alonso first 10, 11 years, success, world championships, great driver. The next 12 years, just a seat filler.
Yeah.
A glorified seat filler.
Yeah. Personally, I would love to have seen Webber make that move to Ferrari. I think taking it back to 2012 and wrapping it up, I think if he made that shift, it's another team that he's got to get used to late into his career. What are the chances of success there? Maybe that's how he was seeing it. Do I really want to put that level of motivation and that level of energy back into a new project?
Yeah.
Or is it easier just to kind of cut and run and do something else?
He did have, he went to Porsche and he won a world championship for them, So I guess that would have given him more
fulfillment,
pleasure, enjoyment to get away from Seb, get away from Red Bull, get away from the bullshit.
Still, can you imagine seeing him suit up in red?
Oh, it would have been.
It would have been awesome, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, we had the same sort of rumors with Ricciardo. Like there was Ferrari links there as well, and we never saw that come to fruition. So it's funny how these similar threads and narratives keep popping up time and time again.
I mean, the thing is, Ricciardo was just never at the right place at the right time.
No.
Yeah, his contract never lined up. Like Webber, from memory, Webber was signing just 1 year, kept his options open.
Yeah.
Like he could have jumped to Ferrari at any point had he wanted to, and they'd worked out an agreement.
I would love to have seen it, and just see what he could make for it. Clearly, Red Bull didn't treat him too well. As we mentioned, he had a pretty rough career, just in the sense of he had to do everything the hard way. He had to earn every little bit of success that came his way, and nothing was given to him. And whenever he had some success or some momentum, it seemed like it was just snatched away from him very quickly. His window was very small.
100%.
You know, there was a time where every driver would have been their dream to be suited in red and driving Ferrari.
Yep.
Doesn't really feel like that way these days.
No.
I'm sure that there are still some drivers who would love to do that,
Of course.
but now it doesn't really.
I don't think they
have that
see it
same
as a
sheen or polish. As,
I don't think they see it as a key to success as like they once did.
no, I mean you would have looked at that car and been scared of it, like, you know, as a juggernaut of the sport,
Yeah.
the legacy and the people that have been in
Attaching
that
your
cockpit.
name to it.
Yeah, and so part of me wishes he did do that, but I can fully understand why he, after going through what he did in Red Bull,
Yeah.
and we know what Vettel was like, very Max Verstappen like too,
Yeah.
in their mentality and their racecraft, that would have taken a lot out of you. We've seen Red Bull, you know, what they did to Webber, and we've seen them what they've done to Ricciardo now. So it's interesting with everything that he's learnt, and we've got Oscar coming through the McLaren ranks, and their approach to things are obviously very different. You know, I hope that we see Oscar achieve the world championship as an Australian, but I also think with that connection to Webber, you know, that's the closest that he's going to get to tasting that success.
And the
And I almost feel like from his point of view, it would almost be just as fulfilling.
he can claim a portion of that. But the thing is, he doesn't toot his own horn either. Like,
No,
you don't see him out here like, look at me, I'm Oscar's manager. I did all these things. Like, he's quietly in the background just doing the best for his driver.
Do you think maybe he's a bit of a lesson for someone like Oscar, that nice guys, they don't finish first, they don't necessarily finish last, but they don't finish first. So
Exactly.
maybe just instilling a little bit of that into Oscar.
Have some ruthlessness about you.
Yeah.
Real quick before we wrap up, because I know we need to. As soon as I saw, because Red Bull had the collage of fans on the car,
On the livery, yep.
as soon as I saw it, I remembered, and I knew straight away why I remembered this race.
Yep.
That year, I don't know if it was Mark Webber. I think it was Mark Webber and his foundation, like the Wings for Life thing.
Yep.
I think from memory. They released a competition to design Mark Webber's helmet for the Singapore
that's
Grand
right.
Prix.
Yep.
So you draw it up, whatever. If you win, if he selects you, you get to, like, flights, accommodation, all that, to Singapore.
Yep.
To watch the race, all good, have fun. And then you get to keep the helmet. Great. I was super keen.
Yep.
So I had made up this schmicko, you know, design. I was stoked with it.
Yeah.
Had the Australian flag in there. Like, I really went to town on this thing. It was fucking mint.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the back of it, I listed all of his Grand Prix wins,
Yep.
which was 8 at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
just before Silverstone. I remember, and as you watch the race, you kind of, it unfolds in a way that you don't expect him to win at all.
Yeah.
So I remember watching that race and having feelings like, I want him to win, but now I've got to, like, the helmet doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah,
Because it's only got 8 wins on the back. It's already out of date.
Yeah.
So I remember having those feelings, and then of course he wins. No worries, I'll whip it open. I can add the 9th on there and send it off.
Yeah.
And I didn't win,
Yeah.
which is a shame. But
Well,
I remember that like clear as day, doing that design and having that feeling of, you know, it's awesome. But now
True.
I've got to add this 9th
true
win
fanboy.
and re-alter the design of it.
Look,
and
I'm not surprised you didn't win, because I've seen your drawing and it's pretty piss poor.
I wish I
but,
still had copies of that helmet, because I remember thinking like, this is the shit. And I tell you though, I remember
Yeah.
what he picked. It was like,
Unbridled confidence.
yeah, it was the best, right?
Yeah.
What he picked, I remember thinking like, okay, this looks like something like a 12-year-old fan's draw, and he's picked it as like a, you know, for the kids, whatever, I don't care.
We're not going to give this to
Yeah,
some.
we're not going to give
30-year-old
it
dude.
to the just the best looking helmet, because
Yeah.
that wouldn't be fair.
Yeah.
We got to give it to the kid, and I look great, and
Yeah.
all the rest of it. But yeah, I remember that very vividly.
Very nice. All right. Canada next week. Very keen.
Yeah,
These off weeks are getting longer and longer.
100%. Also, I know we don't do Sunday sesh
Mhm.
on the retro races, but I still peak. Still
Yep.
peak at the on this day.
Yep.
Ricardo's first win on this day.
How long ago was that?
11 years. 2014
years.
Canada Grand Prix.
Yeah, there you go.
So
That
That
might be
lined
one
up
that
nicely.
We'll be covering in the future.
it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's on the books. Another Red Bull one, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
this is what our Australian drivers do to us.
Real quick, if you had to align yourself with one of the Aussies, Webber or Ricardo, we'll just table Oscar right now. Who did you love watching more? They're both and like I get it. They were both great to watch, but who do you miss watching more? Who do you miss staying up and
It's
spending those late nights with?
it's got to be Webber.
Yeah.
Again, I've just got the memories of effectively not being able to sleep after he gets the win. It just, at the time, it felt so rare, and it did for Ricciardo as well, obviously, but it felt so rare and such an achievement, and just excitement, you know? And I remember the feeling of, all right, off to bed now, and it's like, I can't sleep, I'm buzzed, you know? And for whatever reason, like, Ricciardo, you know, I don't know, it might have just been me personally, like, I didn't watch as much live in 2014, you know, the Mercs were just dominating. Like, that Canadian race, I remember watching the replay in the morning,
everybody went through that.
Yeah, like, not knowing the result of the race, because it's 2014, and, you know, you just don't have instant access to everything like you do now.
Yeah.
Watching the race, you know, and bang, there it is, oh, he wins, awesome, you know. So that 2012-13 era, I was up every night, I was watching those races live, I was with Webber as he's doing it, you know, as now with Oscar.
It was a special time. I'm glad that he's still involved in the sport in some capacity. And I
wish
hope
we
that
saw
see
him
around
more. On the coverage.
He's very much in the shadows, isn't he?
Speaking of Webber, real quick, the that race in 21 at Baku, where Hamilton, like after the restart, and then Hamilton locks his tire and goes straight off the turn one. Oh god! And it's like the Sky Sports commentary. It's, I don't know what commentary, some of the commentary, but Mark's in the box, and you just hear this bellowing squeal. It's him, and it makes me laugh every time I hear it.
I wonder if he's doing commentating duties through another coverage somewhere
maybe
else.
he's doing
that's
like
why he's very much not kind of around on camera and stuff. But it'd be great to see him.
I'd love to see him more.
Yeah. All right, it's cold as balls. So time for you to get the hell out of my house.
See you next week, Canada.
Will do. GG's.
See ya.